Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a really profound metaphor, the roadmap. We're going to use it to explore exactly how human perceptions converge and how they divide, all across our globe. I want you to think of the world not just as a physical space, but as this massive, sprawling atlas of ideas, beliefs, and senses.
To keep us on track, here's our agenda. 1. Mapping the cultural crossroads. 2. Personal journeys and transitions. 3. Food as a cultural bridge. 4. Language, customs, and rituals. 5. Overcoming divisions and stereotypes. And finally, 6. The future of global citizenship. We're going to zoom all the way out to a global scale, shrink things down to something as intimate as a dinner table, and then zoom right back up to look at our collective human destiny.
Section 1. Mapping the cultural crossroads, a GPS for human space. Let's visualize the entire world as a living, breathing cultural atlas.
So think of a cultural crossroads as, well, basically a cultural GPS. Just like a physical map uses longitude and latitude to divide up land, a cultural map uses characteristics like language communities, religions, and aesthetics to segment our shared human space. The key takeaway here is that a cultural crossroads perfectly describes those fascinating geographic intersections where our differing human perceptions actually meet up and where they separate.
Section 2. Personal journeys and transitions. Zooming into the human experience. Moving away from the global view, let's zoom in into the deeply personal, humanizing stories of migration.
Katrina's family journey perfectly illustrates the sheer physical and cultural rupture of forced migration. Starting in 1980, her parents married in Vietnam. Shortly after that, her father, who was part of the military elite in South Vietnam, literally had to flee the communist regime by boat. He eventually landed in a refugee camp in the Philippines before making his way to Portland via Seattle. Years later, in 1984, Katrina's mother escaped with just $20 to her name, ending up in a camp in Hong Kong. It wasn't until Katrina was 18 months old that her father found them, and the family finally reunited in the U.S. That timeline represents an absolute disruption. And, even after they reunited, growing up, Katrina felt like an outsider trying to bridge the Vietnamese language at home with the American environment outside.
But actually, it's not just forced migration that causes this kind of cultural dissonance. It happens by choice too. Ellie, a seasoned expat living in Hong Kong, captured this vulnerability perfectly when she noted how incredibly perplexing the differences in local Chinese and Western work mentalities could be. She said, "It's like trying to read round characters with a straight edge." I mean, what a quote. It brilliantly illustrates the outright confusion people feel when their internal home culture compass just completely fails them in a new environment.
Section 3. Food as a cultural bridge. Taste at the intersections. If migration and relocation create friction, where do we find common ground? Let's pivot to the dinner table. We're going to see how everyday food practices create a space for hybrid identities. Let's hop around the globe for a second. Food festivals act as these massive celebratory intersections of local heritage and global connection. Take Athens, where it's all about connecting the farm to the fork and celebrating Mediterranean roots. Up in Amsterdam, Michelin-star chefs literally turn the city's iconic canals into open-air kitchens. And down in Buenos Aires, more than 1,500 venues light up the city to celebrate food and wine. What you should really take away from this is that food is a universal unifying feature in all cultures because, well, we all need it. But how we celebrate it, that's what creates a bridge.
And what happens when these global culinary bridges cross? You get food fusion. Now, this isn't just some trendy term for expensive restaurants. It's happening every single day in local eateries, representing a dynamic crossing of cultural frontiers. By mixing ingredients and techniques, food fusion actively challenges this idea that cultures are monolithic or unchangeable. It creates a third space, if you will, where new, hybrid identities are formed and celebrated right there on your plate.
Section 4. Language, customs, and rituals. The codes we share. Food brings us together. But what about the invisible codes that bind us within our own communities?
It is so easy, right, to think of a language barrier as just not knowing the right vocabulary word. But a language barrier goes so much deeper than the surface. It's a complex web encompassing fluency, your educational background, and crucially, levels of politeness and socio-cultural nuances. For instance, a foreign student might speak a host country's language flawlessly, but missing the mark on local idioms or the unwritten rules of politeness, that can still lead to intense feelings of discomfort or even severe miscommunication in business and education.
And these hidden codes build directly into our shared customs.
Way back in 1909, anthropologist Arnold van Gennep observed that communities globally use rites of passage to guide people through major life changes, like adolescence. All these rites basically conform to a three-part structure. Step 1, separation from the old self. Step 2, a margin or transition period of testing or learning. And Step 3, aggregation, where the person is reintegrated into society with their brand new status. For all of us, these rituals act as coding systems, literally creating order out of the chaos of human biology and development.
Section 5. Overcoming divisions and stereotypes. Navigating the friction. Of course, where there are different coding systems, there will inevitably be crossed wires. Let's look at how we navigate the friction, misunderstandings, and ideological divisions that naturally manifest when disparate cultures collide.
Let's look at a really fascinating everyday example of this friction, conversational style. Contrast the English style, which is often perceived as detached, somewhat halting in storytelling, and very goal-oriented. Now compare that with the Italian style, which is often emotionally broad, uses interruption as a sign of engagement, and is meant to refresh the spirit. To an English speaker, the Italian style might feel totally chaotic or wishy-washy. To an Italian, the English style might feel cold or devious. It's a perfect example of how simple cultural conventions, if not understood, result in immediate friction.
And that everyday friction, it often leads to a massive destructive roadblock: stereotypes. Stereotypes act like simple but highly destructive mathematical equations in our brains. If you believe all A's are B's, you stop seeing A for who they really are. Relying on these misplaced generalizations based on limited social marks acts as a severe barrier to communication. It reduces complex, fascinating individuals to simple and often very negative assumptions.
So, considering all this friction, the source text poses a rather profound question. How do we escape the crossroads, the nexus of concrete circumstance and humanity? How do we simply exist together in our shared experience? It's a crucial palate cleanser for us as we shift our focus from conflict toward integration.
Section 6. The future of global citizenship, a collective destiny. To answer that question, we need to zoom all the way back out to the macro level to explore the concept of global citizenship and what successful integration actually looks like.
The vision of global citizenship isn't just a corporate buzzword, it's an aspirational collective framework for the 21st century. It involves a conception of belonging and rights that completely transcends local and national borders. It's driven by a desire to attain a more just and humane world, to safeguard our shared natural environment, and to cultivate solidarity. Basically, it demands that we care for others way beyond our immediate geography.
On a practical level, successful integration is absolutely not about forced assimilation. It doesn't mean a minority group obliterating its identity just to blend in. For example, studies on Chinese shop owners integrating into Bologna, Italy, showed that success actually thrives on mutual knowledge, shared social spaces, and the freedom of cultural expression. Integration should generate cultural cross-fertilization. That benefits both immigrants and local residents alike.
We've covered a ton of ground today, right? From the maps of human space, to the food on our plates, right up to the ideals of global citizenship. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to consider. As globalization continues and our cultural atlas inevitably shrinks, will we choose to be defined by the friction of our differences, or will we rise to the occasion and be defined by the solidarity of our shared human experience? The choice at the crossroads is ours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.